and we're going to talk about our next section, which is, again, how do we do something very similar, but on the care side of things? How do we drive a consistent care approach? How do we drive the ability to onboard new sales reps and make sure that they're doing the right things? How do we make sure that we're getting to faster outcomes? So that way when, Susie calls in with an issue and she speaks to Joel today, but she calls in tomorrow and speaks to Tyler, Tyler knows everything that's gone on with the conversation that Joel has had with her and is able to pick up right away versus having her go through the process of reclaiming her issue, reclaiming what's going on, and restating why her need to call. So we're driving the frustrations level down for our customers. But more importantly, we're driving consistent care for every customer in our organization, which is important. So let's talk about what happens there and how that works. So we're going to go back over to the AdventureWorks account, and I'm going to go ahead and pick on a support case that exists here that we're going to interact with. So we're going to go ahead and just grab this support ticket that exists, and we're going to bring this up. And once again, everyone's going to be able to see a very, very similar approach to what's going on here. We've got summary information over on the left-hand side that's very, very basic, very high level, that allows us to capture that information. Again, relationship assistant over on the right-hand side, letting us know that there's really nothing going on that we need to interact with. So our personal assistant is relatively quiet right now. We're scrolling down, we can start to see, here's the customer that's gone on, maybe some, recent cases that have been out there. We've seen one that's been canceled. Does the customer have any type of entitlement or service level agreement that we need to be made aware of to interact with? So all that information is presented here that we can obviously, associate and work with, as well as, obviously, if we wanted to create, additional information, maybe a phone call record here, reaching out to the customer, we can do that. But it's different from what we saw on the account level. We are now only seeing the activity that's gone on that's related to this particular case. So we've drilled down to a lower level here, allowing us to only see the information that's associated with this case. So we've pulled out all the sales conversation and all of the marketing conversations, and now we're only looking at the information that has gone on that's relevant to this case. So we've taken it down a step, and we're laser focused on this particular customer and their issue. Again, we have a guided process that is obviously different than the sales process, where we're speaking with the customer. We're trying to, identify what's going on, their client information, looking at their customer service rep, maybe who's the servicing partner that they may be working with, if there is one. What system is causing the issue? Is there a serial number, anything that we need to interact with? And in this particular case, we can see, obviously, let's pretend this was 14 days and not 14 months, but how long it's been on this particular stage and how long this case has been open. So again, managers have the ability to drive to a consistent care approach. They're able to see exactly where we are with this particular support ticket. And as mentioned before, we have the ability to interact with this information. We can drive reports off of any of the details that show up in any one of these areas to make sure that we're getting to the point where we're driving a consistent approach, right? So the idea here is you build out your organization's support tree, you build out how we want to drive consistent care for every particular customer, and we go through the steps of mapping that out and building that inside the environment. And that gives us the ability to make sure that we're driving a similar care structure for every single customer that we're interacting with. So this becomes critical when working with customers that have the ability to, that have multiple call attempts that come in for a particular case. Like I mentioned earlier, if I'm working on this and I'm filling out all their information that's in the system, and if I'm going in and typing in information that we need to, and I'm filling out all the details that we need to, this is potentially an engine issue, and I'm capturing all the details, and we click on next stage and we move it from inspect over to research as part of that process. We can now see that I'm on this stage for less than a minute. But then maybe we get disconnected, or maybe that customer, needs to take another call and they can't call back for another day or so. So we're off this case. we're on something else, but maybe they call into the queue tomorrow and get to Tyler. Tyler's able to jump right in and say, okay, here's what Joel's worked with them on. Yep, got it. We've been working on the Omni. We're working with an engine issue. So let's go ahead and continue going through this process. So I'm going to go ahead and assign a specialist. We're going to go ahead and get them working with you today on this issue. And then we can assign this out as we need to. So again, as calls get dropped or multiple calls need to happen, we have the ability to kind of pick up where customers left off, and again, drive that consistent message through the process here, which is very, very important, making sure that we're caring for the customers all in the same similar fashion, which really becomes critical. Now, another piece that's pretty important is, and I really didn't mention this before, but we have the ability to, upload knowledge-based articles, and you have the ability to search through knowledge-based articles here as well. So back, here at the summary level information, I believe it looks like they moved this over. I can associate articles here as well, right? So the one thing that this particular customer needed to understand was instruction manuals in drivers. So that's something that they needed to look at first. So you can associate, maybe Joel worked with them on that yesterday. So here's the knowledge-based article that we sent out. Did it work? Did it not work? So I need to go ahead and find additional articles, and we have the ability to look through our system, grab additional knowledge-based articles, email it out to the customer if we need to right away, and they have the ability to kind of interact with that information and respond back to us if that's successful to them or not. So, being able to kind of look at this information, I'll show you real quick. Here's the knowledge-based article. We can say it was either sent to the customer or not. We can email a link if there's a link to the particular knowledge-based article. I believe in here, yeah, this is demo data. Typically, you can upload a copy of that particular knowledge-based article as well, giving the end user the ability to kind of see all that information right there. So that would also show up as a case that we would see in here with a knowledge-based article that was sent out to that particular customer, and that we actually used it as an associated knowledge-based article as well. Now, in addition to that, we can also build out relationships for cases. So are there similar cases that exist that's going on? Do we want to merge this with another case? So maybe Tyler's working on something and I'm working on a case, but we identify through the system that they're similar. So we're going to merge them together and one of us is going to work on it. And this case that we're identifying with an engine may also result in an issue that we find elsewhere inside the support related issue. So we can go ahead and drive a child case based off of something that we've learned here. So again, this just becomes a centralized hub for all of our knowledge-based articles, all of our support-related articles, all of the information that's relevant to the customer about this particular support case. And this allows our support team to drive a consistent care approach across the organization, which is very, very critical. I'm gonna just quickly go back to the home screen, and we're gonna talk just high level about consistency in reporting, which I think is important. And this is where we'll probably wrap up our webinars on this last topic. We've got this dashboard here that we've created that shows our sales pipeline based off of the sales stages that exist in our guided process. If you remember, we had the qualify, develop, propose, and close. Well, those are the stages that we see here inside the environment. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to view the records now that exist here. So in this example, let's pretend I'm the sales manager and I really want to focus in on what's going on at the bottom end of our sales funnel. So these are the deals that are set to close soon that I need to interact with. And we can see here that there's one deal. It's the deal that is associated with VentureWorks that we looked at a few minutes ago. And this shows us all of the information that we need to see about the opportunities that exist in this particular sales stage. So as a manager, I can kind of jump through and interact with that information. But more importantly, I now have a consistent view of the opportunities that I'm managing, and I can drill right from here into this particular case, or this particular opportunity to see where we are in the process. So I'm very curious to see where we're stuck. And this is the example that I used a little bit earlier. I'm looking at the sales funnel. That 95,000 is something I need to close yesterday in order to get this deal done. So now I can come into the guided process to see where Joel is in the process. And as I mentioned earlier, as a manager, I can see he's trying to present that final proposal. I have the ability to now work with Joel to make that happen. But I'm using a consistent dashboard view of information in order to get to that data. Now, dashboards, which are pretty unique, have the ability to, not only view the information here as charts and graphs, but, for example, maybe I want to look at all of the opportunities that exist inside of our environment, and I can see, everything, because maybe I have access to seeing all of that. Or maybe I wanted to see subsets of information. Show me all the deals that just closed. We've got one deal or a couple of deals that closed. We've got 4 of them that have closed, and here's where we're at with those deals, or what we've done with those deals. So I can, kind of change our view of information based off of, all different types of criteria that we've got inside the environment. Now, the other thing that we've learned when talking about driving consistency across the organization is that there are some users out there that are going to love the power of charts and graphs and being able to access and analyze information. And we've got others that love to consume information inside of Excel. So what we can do, obviously this being a very tightly connected Microsoft Office 365 application, is I have the ability to kind of open this information up in Excel online if I wanted to. I can basically take a Polaroid picture or a snapshot view of a static worksheet. So just give me an extract of what we're looking at right here, and I can go ahead and interact with it later on. Or we can go ahead and create a dynamic pivot table or a dynamic worksheet from here. Now, what dynamic means is that it's going to create a database link in Excel back to this view here. So let's pretend that next week we've got 5 more deals that show up in our pipeline view, that we're in the process of tracking those deals. I could open up my Excel worksheet that I created last week and just click on refresh from data source, and it's going to go and grab the latest and greatest information for me right from there without having me to go back into my Dynamics 360 environment. So I can actually look at new information from inside Excel if that's the method that I want to go ahead and view that information. And then, like I mentioned before, we can also open this up in Office Online with Excel Online. So what we can do here, which is actually kind of cool, is if I wanted to, we want to update information. Maybe I'm walking into a sales pipeline meeting and I want to change my close dates. I have the ability to, make changes kind of right here inside the environment if I wanted to. And obviously, that's going to go ahead and update. If I change this one, so maybe now we're looking this one as 30,000 instead. If I click on save and return, it's going to basically re-update my pipeline information inside of Dynamics 365 for me, and basically again give me the latest and greatest view. But more importantly, I've taken a list of all of these opportunities, and I can quickly inside Excel Online update all the information that's missing without having to go into each individual record and do that. So some pretty cool features that are available. And it reintegrates that information up into the environment, and it displays it here for me to go ahead and view real quick inside the screen. So again, allowing me a very consistent and clean way to update my opportunities and my views of information inside the environment.